Hello and welcome into this edition of Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and I want to thank you for making us a part of your day. If you would like to support the show, we're all over the internet, so follow us on Twitter. I'm at mmercado2333. You can like the show on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago, and if you missed any show like the Jimmy V Foundation, Ups for Downs, The Heart of a Marine, and if you missed any previous show, just go on YouTube and follow me at Mike Mercado. So on today's show, we have a very special guest. He is the co-author of the book, Cancer Free, Your Guide to Gentle Non-Toxic Healing. Bill Henderson will join us here on Outreach Radio Chicago. Bill is a health and wellness reporter. He's the author of several books on alternative cancer therapies, including Cure Your Cancer, and his most recent, Cancer Free, Your Guide to Gentle Non-Toxic Healing, which he will talk to us about in just a few minutes. He's also the editor of Cancer Free newsletter and is the host of the web talk radio show, How to Live Cancer Free. He has also served as a coach for thousands of cancer patients and their families, providing information and research findings about available, effective, alternative therapies for those desiring to heal their bodies naturally. It's going to be some very interesting stuff, guys. Stick around. We have Bill Henderson coming up here on Outreach Radio Chicago. Like us on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. Follow me on Twitter at mmercado2333 or send us any show ideas at our email at outreachradiochicago@gmail.com. Coming up next, Bill Henderson joins us on Outreach Radio Chicago. Thank you for keeping it tuned in to Outreach Radio Chicago. I am Mike Mercado. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333 and like our page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. And joining us now is our very special guest. He is the author of Cancer Free, Your Guide to Gentle Non-Toxic Healing. And you can find more of his stuff at makinghealthaffordable.com or at speedingcancergently.com. Author Bill Henderson joins us here on Outreach Radio Chicago. Bill, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, that's correct. It came out, this particular book, about 2004 in the first edition. We just upped it in 2011, where Dr. Carlos Garcia, an MD, became my co-author. He and I pretty much agree about how to deal with cancer. But what the book has done is help lots of people heal themselves of cancer by informing them about both the causes of it and the most effective ways to overcome it. And I do that, talking to people on the phone and Skype and so on every day, as well as the book. But something interesting came up about 3 or 4 months ago that really was surprising to both Dr. Garcia and me, and that had to do with sugar in fruit. Sugar in general feeds cancer, we felt. And in our book, we warn people that, fruit is wonderful. It has nutrients and so on in it, some of them somewhat unique and very helpful, but that it contains sugar. And therefore, you should limit the amount of fruit that you eat, and certainly not drink fruit juice because it's too concentrated and so on. Well, it turns out that's not correct. And we have to change our book when we get around to it, because about maybe 6 months ago, Dr. Tony Jimenez, who runs a cancer clinic in Tijuana called Hope for Cancer, one of his scientists from India completed a research project on fructose, which is the sugar in fruit. Scientifically, it has a little L in front of it, which is a term that I can't even recall what it means, but to me, it reminds me that the fructose in fruit, the molecule has a left spinning feature. And what this scientist discovered is that the cancer feeds only on right spinning sugar molecules. And this is high fructose corn syrup that's in almost all processed food that people buy, and refined sugar that we get out of the sugar bowl and so on. These are very, very unhealthy for cancer because it does thrive on sugar.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just this is literally mind blowing. I can't believe that all this time, like we've always heard what sugar does to the body negatively, but when did this really start popping up? Like the fructose and the L and the right, the left and the right. Like how did this really? How did you guys get to this point? I mean, it's something so small, right? Like we're talking about little molecules. It's not like eating a straw. It's not the strawberry itself. It's what's inside of it, right? Like how did you guys get to this point?
Well, it's interesting. I of course, didn't do the research, but I've learned about it, and I trust the people that this information comes from. Dr. Jimenez is a wonderful expert on natural cancer healing and has been running a clinic there for many years. But this is new information, basically, that has been discovered, scientifically documented now, that really carrots and beets, which are the most sugar-laden vegetables that we have.
No kidding.
As well as fruit, is not harmful to people with cancer. And this validates something that I was always curious about, which is, there's cancer clinics that feed their cancer patients several glasses of carrot juice every day. And it seems to help. It helps overcome the cancer. And I've always wondered about that because carrots are so high in sugar as a vegetable. Well, it turns out that they have this little L fructose in it, in the carrots, just like fruit does, and it doesn't harm the cancer. It doesn't feed it.
So something like that, so carrot juice and beets, so those are the good things. For example, then, would something like you were saying, like heavily concentrated and processed, so something like I don't even know, like the fruit snacks, those little chewy ones, the gummy bear ones almost, those would be bad, even though they say natural flavored and things like that. There's no real benefits for that, right? That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah, here. Natural flavors means that MSG has been added to make it taste different, which is very harmful to the body. But they contain sugar that is the wrong type, okay? The fruit itself, natural fruit, bought ideally organically, quite healthy, even for cancer patients. And I've had to change my opinion about that.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that because your work is phenomenal. When I was doing my research about the book, this is already the 4th edition, the constant research, and what I could really appreciate it is for a very smart man like yourself who gets, along with the Dr. Garcia and guys who get really high recommendations online, you're willing to change your opinion where the facts are. Now, can you kind of tell our audience a little bit about this? Because you were very strong on the other end of the fence for a little while, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it just seemed like sugar of any kind was something that cancer patients needed to avoid, or at least to limit if it's in something that has other healthy features like fruit or carrots or whatever. But it turns out that's not the case. They do not have to avoid this at all. It's not harmful. In fact, eating fruit and vegetables of all kinds is quite helpful for cancer. And certainly carrots. An interesting book written recently called Curing Cancer with Carrots by a lady named Ann Cameron, who healed herself of cancer by grinding up 5 pounds of carrots every day and making juice.
Wow.
5 big 8-ounce glasses of juice every day of carrots, and it took 3 or 4 months, and she got over her cancer. And she didn't really change much about her lifestyle other than that, you know. So, I mean, and this has been used actually by the Gerson Cancer Clinics and other clinics for many years as a treatment for cancer, the carrot juice.
Now, does the timing of or the stage of cancer, is it affected by this? So let's say you're just recently diagnosed with something. Can you get ahead of it by eating the right fruits and vegetables? Or is this something even that we could do to prevent it? Is this something that we're starting to learn that, hey, you do this enough, you do it in moderation, you can prevent these kind of cancer diseases?
Yeah, it's both, really. It's a wonderful prevention to eat properly and load up your diet as much as possible with vegetables and fruit, as it turns out. It's a wonderful prevention, but it also is a healing process. You know, I'm only 83 years old, Mike, and I'm doing exactly what I recommend cancer patients do every day for prevention, and it's working.
83 years young. That's the key word. Bill Henderson joins us right here on Outreach Radio Chicago. He's the co-author of Cancer Free, Your Guide to Gentle, Non-Toxic Healing. You can find the book at makinghealthaffordable.com. Before we go back into the book and a little bit more research, I was speaking of the research, I was looking about the author because I wanted to get to know you a little bit more before we went on there, and your story, very touching. I don't know how much you really want to get into it, but just so the audience know a little bit more about Bill Henderson, can you tell us a little bit about your career, kind of where it's taking you, how many books, everything like that, please?
Sure. As you probably know, I lost my former wife to ovarian cancer and its treatment, basically, in 1994. And I knew nothing then that I know now about cancer and natural healing and what have you. And so I couldn't help her. But since 98 or so, I have learned that there is lots of information around about natural healing and lots of examples of millions of people who've done it to themselves all over the world. And I've tried to document that in books. Published the first one in 2000. I've published 3 books since then. This cancer-free book you mentioned is the most recent one. And you know, it's helped lots and lots of people heal themselves, really, which is about the only way you ever get over cancer, is to learn enough that you can reverse the cancer by the way you treat your body, basically. And we have a pretty detailed protocol in the cancer-free book about how people should how they should eat, what they should take in the way of supplements to support their body's deficiencies and so on. And it works, amazing, but people still have to deal with the cause of their cancer. Why did they get that? It's not an accident, so they have to reverse the causes as well as changing their lifestyle. And it's worked for lots and lots of people all over the world. I deal with people, 3 or 4 people on the phone or Skype every day all over the world. Talk to people, about 5,000 plus people
Wow.
in 68 countries all over the world in the last 13, 14 years I've been doing this. And it's remarkably wonderful for me to get me up every morning to be able to help these people like that.
Oh, and first of all, our condolences for your loss. You know, and an appreciation also to you for taking such a horrific or such a heartbreaking situation, and Lord knows saving how many lives or helping save so many lives and putting people in the right direction. So, with that in mind, for somebody who might be just going through this right now, let's say a husband or a wife whose spouse is going through this, what would Bill Henderson say now to the Bill Henderson then and to our listeners now about what you should do? What are the steps? How do we do this? How do we make them comfortable? How do we beat this thing down?
Yeah, good question. The first thing, of course, is to do some research. The book we've written is a place to start. There are other places, other good books out now, and lots of information on the internet and so on about this. It wasn't there when I was trying to help my late wife back in the early 90s. It's all there. There's no excuse for people not getting up to speed on this, really. They can start, if they want, at my website, which is beating-cancer-gently.com.
Which is a great website. I was actually looking on there, and in a few minutes, you were also giving some recommendations for nutritional health. So maybe after you giving us your thoughts, that would also be very helpful for us too, because I know our listeners are very in tune right now.
Yeah, and there's lots of free information there you can read. A couple of years of my newsletters are there that you can read anytime. A group of articles, but there are hundreds of people's stories of their own recovery on that website. And people should go and explore that if they're interested in either preventing or treating cancer, because it will give you a lot of useful information. There's a coaching page there, and that's what I mentioned, where I talk to people every day. Once people have read our book, I'm happy to help them individually with their condition and give them coaching, if you will, as often as they need it to help them along the way. But they kind of have to get a common knowledge first by reading the book. That's all. Yeah,
and as Bill was saying earlier, his website, Beating Cancer Gently, you got to make sure you put the dashes in between them.com. And I was also, when I was doing research in there, for anybody who doesn't speak English, they do have sources and ways for you to get around that if there's a language barrier. So do not feel like you're locked into something that you can't get help. It's a great website, guys. Bill does some great work. Just make sure you check it out. Now, Bill, I know as great as the fruits and vegetables are, what are some other nutrients that you take? What are some activities that you do that help all this, that kind of make it one well-oiled running machine?
Yeah, well, we try to help people rebuild their immune system. You know, cancer is a symptom of a weak immune system, among other things. We try to get them to correct the acidity in their body and get it more alkaline. And take things like vitamin D3, which is an essential part of healing cancer, really, getting the vitamin D level up in their blood up to a healthy level. And, you know, multivitamin minerals and so on. But there is food that is very, very helpful. One of them is called cottage cheese and flaxseed oil, a mixture that is magic in the sense that it rebuilds the membranes of your healthy cells and makes them communicate better and operate more efficiently. It's amazing. It works wonderfully well, and it's just a food. It doesn't cost anything. Substitute, you know, what you eat for breakfast with cottage cheese, flaxseed oil.
Nice, yeah.
You're going to get well.
That's cool. Now, activity-wise, do you ever suggest anything to people that will, let's say, hide in anything like that? Go jogging, avoid jogging, things like that? Just little tidbits?
Most of the time, any heavy exercise is not a good idea when you have been diagnosed with cancer. It's a good idea to use walking as the exercise and to do it regularly. And we certainly recommend that. We work with a lot of people that are debilitated, you know, to the point where, you know, they can't really do that. But in general, moderate exercise is wonderful. And there's something called a rebounder, which is wonderful for getting the system working correctly. And it's very inexpensive. You can put it in the living room or upstairs in a bedroom and use it daily. It's wonderful.
Now, you also have you did a radio show yourself, a weekly show, is that correct?
Yes.
Is it still online? Are you still doing that?
Well, you can access it now. I stopped doing that because of the deadline every week.
Yeah, we know the pain. No, but it's at webtalkradio.net. Some more great stuff, information from Bill. Bill, before I let you go, because you've been awesome, and let me just tell you something. Here on Outreach, you're only our second show that we've been able to try to hit the subject of cancer. The first show we did was with the Jimmy V Foundation, and let me tell you something right now. The information that you've given us, just strictly on everyday things, like for somebody like me, I never would have even thought that for the longest time fruit sugar was considered bad for cancer patients, and now we're starting to see the benefits, and smart men like yourself are changing their opinions. Is there any last advice, last thoughts that you give to our audience here in Chicago about your book, any way they can get your book, and as well if they want to volunteer and help any way they can.
Well, my advice to everyone is don't fear cancer. It's nothing to be frightened of. Once you understand what it is and how to deal with it, it's not that difficult. It's just like any other chronic degenerative condition. But generally, people need to do the research, and if it's ideal if they can do it before this thing called cancer happens to them. Folks, it's a good idea to get up to speed on this because about 41% of us, that's approximately, are going to experience cancer in our life, and certainly people next to us that we love in one way or another are going to experience it. So get up to speed on it now. Don't wait till it happens.
Well, Bill, all I could say is thank you so much for the work that you're putting in. It's a grind. We can imagine that at 83 years young, you're still making us quote-unquote young bucks look bad by the amount of work that you've been putting in today, especially with your media tour going on. So the book, again, is Cancer-Free, Your Guide to Gentle, Non-Toxic Healing. You can find it at makinghealthaffordable.com, and go to Bill's website himself. It's a great website, great stories, and when he tells you about some of the actual triumphant stories of people beating cancer, it's heart-touching. I went through it, and I was going through the whole message board. It's amazing. Bill Henderson, thank you so much for joining us here on Outreach Radio Chicago. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
And we will be right back here on Outreach Radio Chicago. And that'll do it for us here on Outrage Radio Chicago. A big thank you to our special guest, Bill Henderson, the author of Cancer-Free, Your Guide to Gentle and Non-Toxic Healing. You can find more information and the book at makinghealthaffordable.com or on Bill's website at beatingcancergently.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please follow us on Twitter at Mercado2333. Like us on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. And if you have any special foundation, fundraiser, sponsorship, anything like that you want on the show, please email us at outreachradiochicago@gmail.com. We'll see you next time here on Outreach Radio Chicago.